welcome back to Math Mini Lessons. In this lesson, we're going to talk about resizing and figuring out, is the product greater or smaller? So when we're multiplying, we want to be able to predict when the product will be greater or smaller than its factors. And we already know so much about multiplying numbers, so we're going to explore three different conditions. We're going to multiply by numbers that are less than 1, multiply by 1, and multiply numbers that are greater than 1, and we're going to see what happens. So as I model, look to see how I use those multiplication patterns to predict, and that helps us. Like, once you see a pattern a few times, you kind of know what to expect, and that's going to tell us if we're scaling up, if our numbers are getting bigger, or scaling down, they get smaller. Look to see how I represent the scenario as a multiplication sentence, how I confirm my prediction by actually doing the work and finding that product, and then how I explain my thinking by answering the question and giving at least 2 pieces of evidence to support my answer from my work. So let's do some pattern seeking. We're going to actually again multiply by numbers that are less than 1, exactly 1, and more than 1, just to see if we can figure out a pattern that helps us predict. So we'll just start with a regular number. Let's start with the number 6. And I'm going to multiply 6 by an easy enough number, 6 times 1/2. So just by looking at it, make a prediction. Is it going to be bigger or smaller than 6? So what do we think? We know when we multiply this, we're going to get 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. So it is smaller. So when I multiply by a fraction, in this first try, it got smaller. What happens when I multiply 6 times just the number 1? We know that we're going to get the same number, 6. It doesn't change. And let's try multiplying 6 by a number. Let's do it by 3/2. So I want to use a fraction on purpose. So it's a fraction that is greater than 1. All right, so we know we're going to end up getting 18 over 2. 18 divided by 2 is equal to 9. So 9 is greater than 6. So we had our first case where we multiplied a number by less than 1, it got smaller, it scaled down. When we multiply by exactly 1, we know it stays the same. When we multiply by a number greater than 1, we ended up with a greater number in the end. Let's see if that's always true though, because it's not about it happening one time. We want to see if this is a repeated pattern. So let's use the number 10. And I'm going to multiply the same way, 10 times 1/2, 10 times 1, and 10 times 3/2. All right, so let's do by a smaller number. 10 times 1/2 is equal to 10 over 2, or 5. So it got smaller again. 10 times 1 is just 10, so we knew that was the same. And 10 times 3 over 2, that was 30 over 2, which is equal to 15. So it got greater. So my pattern is continuing so far. So far, when I multiply by a fraction, a whole number by a fraction, it scaled down. It got smaller. When I multiply by 1, it stays the same. And when I multiply by a number more than 1, it got bigger. So let's try a bigger number. Let's try 100. So 100 times 1/2. We know this is going to be smaller because I'm going to end up with 100 divided by 2. So I think it's safe to say that anytime we multiply by a fraction, it's going to get smaller. Anytime I multiply by 1, it's going to stay the same. I'm still going to get 100. Okay, so we had 100 over 2, and here I got 100. And if I did 100 times 3/2, so 300 divided by 2, this is the one I actually want to work out, I get 150. So it got greater. We're going to use this for our conventions to see if this is always true. And if you're not sure, we're going to confirm it by actually doing the multiplication. Which statement is true about the product of 5/12 times 7? Well, when we just tried this out looking at patterns, we know that when we multiply a number, so in this case 7, times, in this case this is a number that is less than 1, we expect that this is going to scale down. and I'm going to get a number that is less than 7. So again, if you just multiply it out, you'd get 35 over 12, which simplifies how many 12s can go into 35? 2, with a remainder of 11 out of 12. So yes, it is less than 7. But the rest of this problem, we're going to go through it one by one, is asking, what about the other factor? So far everything we've talked about has been about the original number, and we multiply it by that second one. So we're going to take a logic stance and look at them one at a time. So the first one says the product is greater than each factor. Well, that's not true. 2 and 11/12 is not greater than 7, so not true. Can't count that one. The second one, the product is less than each factor. Okay, well, 2 and 11/12 is less than 7, but this is not less than 5/12. So that is not true. Okay, because we just saw it right there. 2 and a fraction is more than a number that is less than 1. Third one, the product is greater than 5/12, but less than 7. That is true when we look at it. And that's why for these type of statements, we have to read them one by one. And to be fair, sometimes I just cover them up so that I could just look at the one thing that I'm looking at in that moment to kind of focus. So if you can do that, that kind of helps. But this one for C, it is true. And for D, the product is equal to one of the factors. We know that is not true. So that's how we use logic. We actually can use what we know, but in a logic statement, I check them one by one to see if it is true. Hit pause and jot this down into your notes. Let's look at our second model problem. Julie has 15 Skittles. Renice has 1/3 as many Skittles as Julie, who has more Skittles, and we're going to use what we know to answer the question. So we definitely know Julie has 15, and Renice has 1/3 of whatever Julie has. So right then and there, I know she only has a part of Julie's Skittles, so we know that Julie has more. Julie has to have more because Renice only has a part that is less than Julie's part. And if you're not sure what that means, you can literally just multiply them out. And again, I'm going to multiply 15 times 1/3. So I know my answer is going to be smaller than 1/3. It's going to scale down. And that's what I get. I get 15 over 3, which simplifies to 5. So Renice only has 5 Skittles. So now I'm going to have to explain my full answer. And what I want to do is I want to answer the question and then justify it using my work. So I know 15 is greater than 5. Okay, so let's see what my answer is and does it make sense. Here we go. Julie has more Skittles. Bam, I answered the question. Renice only has a fraction of what Julie has because because she has 1/3 the number of Skittles. Perfect. 1/3 of 15 is less than 15. When I multiplied 1/3 times 15, I saw she only had 5 Skittles. There, done. So I just have nice, simple sentences. 4 math explanations. Keep it as simple as possible. Answer the question, explain how you know, and just put your reasoning in. It does not have to be very complicated to be a good answer. All right, hit pause and jot this down into your notes. Let's look at this next one. Which expression has a greater value than 1/2? So all of these have 1/2. How can I multiply and make 1/2 scale up? Use what you know. Take a moment to think about it. You would have to multiply 1/2 times some number that has to be greater than 1. So looking at your choices, which factor is greater than 1? Only D has a number that's greater than 1. A has a number that's less than 1, so I know it's going to go down, and it does. I get 4/10, so it did go down. It's less than 1/2. And B and C both have, you're just multiplying by 1 each time. So you're going to end up getting in fractional form 4/8, which is equal to 1/2. and 5/10, which is also equal to a half, because these are both just ones written as fractions. So yes, D is a number greater than 1, and when you multiply it, you get 5/8, which is more than half of 8. All right, so let's look at our reasoning. Again, how do I justify my answer and use my knowledge of fractions? So I need to be able to answer the question and show that I know why this is true. So here's my answer. To have a value greater than 1/2, I need to multiply half by a number greater than 1. Done. That's just my reasoning. 5/4 is greater than 1, and 1/2 times 5/4 is equal to 5/8, which is greater than 1/2. Done. So 2 very simple sentences that show that I know when you multiply a number times a number greater than 1, you will have a greater value than that original number. Hit pause and jot this down into your notes. And that's it for today's lesson. Take some of our patterns, and remember, as you're going through your problems for today, this is about logic and how will you explain. So make sure you're trying to keep your sentences really simple, but show that you understand the meaning. I'll see you in the next lesson, Math Marvels. Bye.